Hello everyone, welcome back to Dark Souls 1. Here's part 2 of our fist run. So at the end of the last part, we got enough souls for 2 levels, so we're putting that into dexterity to give ourselves a bit of extra damage. Now, we ended the last part by ringing the second bell of awakening and then defeating the Moonlight Butterfly. Now, opening or ringing the 2 bells of awakening gets us access to Sen's Fortress, which is how we're going to be starting this one out. Sen's Fortress. And since we're here, we should probably check our damage. Alright, I was hoping to kill them right away, but these enemies are pretty easy to parry. And here's just a quick overview of our equipment, so you can see what we have going in. And I'll slow down and show it more for when we beat the bosses. Now, to properly check our damage. Shouldn't be too bad. And a 1 parry. That looks to be about half, maybe a little lower. And 2. Most enemies, upon being parried, should die in 1 to 2 hits. This takes 3. That's not good. But thankfully, most of this area is one-on-one encounters with enemies that are very easy to parry, so let's get into it. Now, past this first lightning-wielding enemy, there's a trap and a chest. And in that chest, there are 2 large Titanite shards, which we are going to need to further upgrade our equipment. After Goomba stomping on another one of these snake guys, and then full on just bullying them. I mean, really. Parrying in this game is a little too easy. At least against normal enemies, it's extremely forgiving. But after completely bullying a snake person, we decide to run over and grab ourselves the Slumbering Dragon Crest Ring. Very good for stealth and just quickly getting past enemies. After moving the ball contraption to knock open this wall, and then moving it again to make the pathway safe, we decide to free Logan because we can. And then since we're here, we decide to go and pick up another decent-sized soul before moving on. And as we near the top, we take down 1 more snake person before grabbing ourselves another 2 large Titanite shards. And at the top level of Sen's Fortress, protected by 2 Boulder Knights, is a chest that holds the Flame Stone Plate Ring. And then at the top, you just walk up the stairs until you see an item, and you take a right and fall down into this gap, where you can get yourself another bonfire, and then we sit down and put a level into endurance. And while walking up these stairs, we were thinking, we don't have a lot of damage, but the giants do have a lot of health. So we said, hey, why not give Poison Mist another shot? And starting at the first punch there, I actually decided to count how long this fight would take. And thankfully the poison seems to have taken out the stamina, taken out the breath of the giant. Seems he can't handle a poisonous mist filling his lungs, which is good for us, I suppose. Now, the giants may seem intimidating, but as long as you can keep an eye on their hands and feet and know the tells and where to position, they're actually quite easy. So they're more intimidation factor than anything, but I still find them to be fairly fun. despite the extreme ease. At least that fast builds present. But with that, the fight took 70 seconds. Definitely worth it for the 3,000 souls and a Titanite chunk. And with the bomb-throwing giant dead, we decided to run back and grab ourselves 2 large Titanite shards, along with another large soul. Now here I decided to test Poison Mist, and I thought it'd probably be good to test it against one of these Baronite Knights, since they have a lot of health. And I was also only 2 large Titanite shards away from being able to have 9, which would allow you to get a weapon from +5 to +10, which I wanted to do for the claws. Now, I was originally going to let this play out because I thought it would only do like 300 damage, and then it surpassed 300. And so I went, okay, so it'll do 450, and it surpassed 450. And so I thought, okay, it'll stop at 600. It didn't stop at 600. It did 620 damage, which killed the Baronite Knight, and that went from the span of nearly 3 minutes. It was like 2 minutes and 54 seconds. So, yeah, Poison Mist, for if the enemy isn't aware of your presence, pretty strong. Now, obviously that's not like the most universally helpful pyromancy, that's not the most universally useful magic, but it has this niche little thing that it does, and when it does it, wow, it does it well. Because this thing, a single cast of Poison Mist, without upgrading the Pyromancer Flame at all, without putting any points into any magic-related stat, without anything like that, allowed me to essentially one-shot the Baronite Knight without even fighting them. Which is crazy. So, that seems like it would be really, really good for stealth, or for going up against enemies that you aren't comfortable fighting, as long as they're not immune to poison. And you can get it really early on, actually, in Blighttown, without having to fight any enemies, and dead. Like I said, literally just stood there. And this got me 1 large Titanite shard, so I decided to go over to the Crestfallen Merchant and buy 1 more. And back over the Undead Parish, I decided to offer a humanity to kindle a bonfire to allow me to get from 5 to 10. And then I tried it again, but without the rite of kindling from Pinwheel, I maxed at 10. So I decided to go over and talk to Andre. Now, while looking and trying to look at the Cestus compared to the Claws actually did 99 damage at base, whereas the Cestus did 150 at +8. The Claws at +5 did 151. So they did 1 damage higher despite being 3 upgrades lower. And on top of that, they also had better dexterity scaling, and they had bleed buildup. All for the pretty low cost of having 0.5 higher weight and half the durability, but those 2 are fine. And since I could get the damage higher and have bleed buildup, I decided to get the Claws to +10. and deciding to test our damage with the claw, we go back to these guys. Remember, it took 3 full parries with the fist. Here, it takes 1 parry and 1 normal attack, which is much, much better. And after taking a few more hits than was necessary, we got down to the bottom to get up the ladder, to get ourselves another soul, and to get to this illusory wall. Which, I mean, hey, we fought the giant, or we fought a giant in Sen's Fortress with our fist, and so figured, hey, why not do the same thing with the claw? See how much better we do. And we decide to swap back to the Pyromancy Flame real quick, and then we go in. And the increased damage mixed with blood loss or bleed buildup, whatever you want to call it, actually made a massive difference here. That took around 20 seconds compared to the 70 of using the fist. So I was feeling pretty confident, maybe a little too confident, going into the boss. And then here we buy the last of the Titanite shards that we need in order to get the Thief Mask from +2 to +3 and the Black Leather Boots from +2 to +3, getting the entire Black Leather set to +3. And then we buy the repair box for good measure. Now, I could have summoned Iron Tarkus, but I decided against it because I had been using summons for just about every fight this entire run so far. And I didn't want to get over-reliant on them, I didn't want to get too cozy with them, and I knew I was going to be using them a few more times in future fights. So I decided to go into this fight alone, and seeing my damage, I instantly regretted it. But, oh well. This boss is very easy, right? Can't be that hard. Until I die from gravity. And at this point, I wasn't entirely sure why my damage was so bad. Maybe I was underleveled. Maybe it was like the attack type that I was using, because strike tends to be better against foes with heavy armor, whereas the claws uses slash. Or maybe it's just the weapon type. You know, maybe fists just don't do good damage, and they're more about being lightweight instead of inflicting good damage. Or maybe it was just that my first run was using greatswords, and greatswords are really, really, really good, which, don't get me wrong, they are. But I was thinking maybe they had just set my expectations for the damage I was going to do to be too high. Because that was a complaint I had with greatswords, was that I was doing too much damage, whereas piercing swords and now seemingly claws were kind of the opposite, where I'm doing very little damage. But I figured, hey, this might just be the Quailag, like the piercing sword Quailag of this run, where they do a lot of damage and I do no damage, but as long as I know their moves and have good positioning and don't get complacent, then I'll probably be fine. And then he throws out some new moves that I don't think I've ever seen. And I was stuck in an animation because I was too greedy and died again. And this is when I had to stop and go, okay. This was one of the 2 bosses, along with Pinwheel, in my first run that I breezed over so easily that I never even learned them. And that I threw them to the side and completely disregarded them. And this happens a lot with me for some reason, where I'll have some of the hardest bosses be some of the easiest for me, and then some of the easiest bosses be some of the hardest for me. And part of that is because the easy bosses are easy, and so therefore I don't learn them. And then when I throw something into the mix, like a different weapon class, or a different build that I'm not used to, it really throws me off. Because I don't know the boss. Or, even if I have learned the boss, I just don't respect them because they're typically easy. But after dying twice, I decided to switch things up. I decided to use the Saestus since they have strike damage, and I was doing 38. And I was looking at the damage of the Saestus compared to the damage of the Claw. Which, 41, but that was with the heavy attack. Whereas the Saestus was the light attack. And again, too greedy, got a little complacent. But it was after dying twice that I really went, alright, I have to take this boss seriously. They're actually a threat. And it was after this slam, I believe, that I actually started looking at them as a legitimate boss. So, I'll just let this play out. And that is the Iron Golem down. It took 3 attempts. Way, way harder than I thought it was going to be. Partially because of complacency. But that gets us core of an Iron Golem, very important for later, along with 40,000 souls. And we did that with the Cestus +8, the Claw +10, the Target Shield, the East-West Shield, the entire Black Leather set at +3, along with the Wolf Ring, the Chloranthy Ring, and being at level 35, with 20 Vitality, 20 Endurance, 9 Strength, 23 Dexterity, and 10 Resistance. And after sitting at the Anor Londo bonfire, we decided to move up to 23 Endurance and 25 Dexterity, putting us to level 40. And after killing the Gargoyle, which took 40 seconds, we decided to go pick up a Demon Titanite, which we're going to need if we want to upgrade a certain fist later on. Stop throwing knives at me, alright? You get out of here. Alright, good, good. Now we just have to wait for him to come back up. And they healed. We can deal with that. And the AI in Dark Souls 1 is kind of weird sometimes, not gonna lie. Another gargoyle dead, another 40 seconds of my life down. And after getting to this guy and fighting the second hardest boss in Dark Souls, the camera. Mind you, none of that was me. All that camera movement was automatic. Like during the actual parry animations, that was completely automatic. I didn't have my thumb on the analog stick at all. But after beating that boss, we get ourselves to Solaire and the next bonfire, which is always a treat. And after clearing out the room with 3 Silver Knights, we pick up another 2 Demon Titanite. And while we can't do it yet, with the Core of an Iron Golem, you can ascend a +10 fist into the Dragonbone Fist, which is the fist that requires Demon Titanite upgrade. Now, I was going to do this with the Cestus, which is why I bought 2. Now, I'm not going to do it with the Claw, even though that's the only one I can do it with right now. But since we can only do it with the Claw, which we're not going to, we're going to have to put this on the back burner and wait to get another 5 large Titanite shards in order to upgrade our Cestus to +10. Now, going down the elevator and into the room with all the painting guardians, we wanted to come here to get something, and I was kind of hoping that we could just slip on by using the Slumbering Dragon Crest ring, but some of the painting guardians weren't too keen on letting me just walk in, which I suppose is fair, but no good deed goes unpunished. So we just had to follow one of the basic ground rules of Dark Souls, which is, this is Dark Souls, take it slow. Just take it slow, check your corners. And one of them just decided to run away for reasons. and then decided to be difficult. But nothing we can't deal with. Although we were kind of hoping that they'd come closer eventually. But something about the Painting Guardians is they are actually very, very difficult to parry because of how extremely fast they are. But that jumping attack that they do is a lot slower, is a lot more telegraphed, and I believe has a wider parry window. So that's a wonderful move to bait out if you can. But we just kept going, taking it slow, checking corners, keeping an eye on as many as we could, making sure not to rush anything. And eventually we were able to make it to the final one, which we didn't bait out the jump attack and we got punished for that. But not punished enough to get us killed, and so it's fine. But here we got the Black Iron set, which is going to be our second set for the run. Because fists don't really do a whole lot of damage or poise damage, and they don't have much range, we're going to need good defense and good poise, which the black leather set doesn't provide that. It gives us precisely 0 poise. So while we can't use this yet because it's far too heavy, hopefully we will be able to shift over to this slowly as we go on and continue this run. And that'll give us more defense and more poise and let us be more of a brawler, which is what we're going for this run. Now, it might be around here where you think, wait, if you're using the Black Iron set here, like, why don't you use that for the Ultra Greatsword run? Because then you could go fully as Black Iron Tarkus. But that's where the problem of me doing the self-limitation of every single run using a different armor set and shield comes from. Again, don't need to do this, it's just something I decided to impose on myself. Where I don't want to over-rely on one thing, and so I want to use a different shield and different armor sets every run. And the Black Iron set is one of those instances where it's like 2 runs kind of clash together because of how limited the armor selection is in this game. It's not bad, but when you're going through roughly 20 runs and you're using sometimes 2 different armor sets in a single run, it can really limit what you're capable of. But I kind of see that as a good thing, at least for the rule set that we've applied to ourselves here, since that really forces me to stop and just go, okay, how do I best optimize not only for this current run, but for future runs as well? Because what I do here in the fist run can screw me over in a completely different run if I'm not careful. And I kind of like that. And we bring a giant down, which gives us 3k and a Titanite chunk. Now I think here's a good time to explain this. After getting back to the bonfire, like the Anor Londo bonfire, to give myself 10 Estus, I decided to check to see if I could wear any part of the Black Iron set yet. And what I found was that if I took off the Cestus and the target shield, So I would only have the claw and the east-west shield. Then, and only then, I could wear the headpiece. That was it. I couldn't wear any other piece of the set. And I was actually thinking, might as well just drop the shields altogether, at least for the boss fight itself. Because for most of the bosses, you can't really use these shields. Because they don't give the defense, they definitely don't give the stability. And you can't parry any of the bosses outside of Gwyn, at least to my knowledge. And yet, despite not using them, I always keep mentioning them after beating each boss. And so I was really considering just dropping the shields, at least for this boss, since no point to them. But since we cleared out all the enemies to the boss, I decided I have the souls, I don't want to lose the souls, and I need some large Titanite shards, so might as well go buy 2. Problem is, I was 21 souls away from being able to buy 2 large Titanite shards. And so, after a tiny bit of thinking, I went, okay, I can just pop one of the smallest souls that I have, which is a lot more than 21, but better than going in and dying and losing nearly 3,800. And then I decided to just repair my equipment. I didn't want to use a heal. I didn't want to use an Estus. So I decided to pop a Humanity. So that way I could keep the 10 Estus going in. Because, again, maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm just insane, but I don't see Humanity as being this, like, insanely vital thing. I don't really have a problem popping a Humanity to heal. But, like I said it before, apparently you can keep Solaire alive all the way to the end of the game. And once I learned that, I wanted to try it out. And so one of the things I was going to do for this run is summon Solaire for every single fight that you can summon him for, at least the ones that I know of. And I knew you could summon him here, so I went with it. And I will let this fight play out. and that is Ornstein and Smowdown first try, giving us the solo Smow, which kind of useless, except for souls, and 50,000 souls. And for the equipment, we had the Claw plus 10, the Black Iron Helm, and then the Black Leather Armor plus 3, Black Leather Gloves plus 3, Black Leather Boots plus 3, Ring of Steel Protection, and Chloranthy Ring. And to top it off, we beat them at level 43 with 21 Vitality, 24 Endurance, 9 Strength, 26 Dexterity, and 10 Resistance. And after picking ourselves up a Lord Vessel, we decided, we're out of here. We're good. Goodbye.
Yes, it's well.
And then after talking to our good friend,
There you
almost
are.
called him Sigurd, after talking to our good friend Siegmeyer, we decided that, we'll probably do his quest, actually, and then we put 2 levels into Endurance, 2 levels into Vitality, and then spun around for a bit, waiting for a bird to pick us up. Now, before you see what happens, I want to preface this. I had been playing for, like, 7 hours now? Not all Dark Souls 3, or Dark Souls 1. I'd been playing Dark Souls 1 for about 3 hours at this point, but before that I'd been playing a different, far more mentally exhausting game. You can guess what that was. For a good 4 hours. And so... And all of this was in the middle of the night. So, I was very tired, physically and mentally. That doesn't excuse what's about to happen here. Don't get me wrong. What happened, I'll let my stupidity speak for itself. Yeah, I thought they were going to attack right away, and my brain had some major lag. So after coming back, and realizing that there's a delay before they attack, so I can get an instant healing, we decided that our brain's going to semi-work. Only semi-work. Only 15% of the normal 30. But at this point, that's better than the 0% for the first attempt. So, but I'll let the rest of this fight speak for itself. Definitely not our best work, which I feel like should be the tagline of this entire run, but we got it. Second try. And that was with a plus 10 claw, a plus 3 black leather set, the Ring of Steel Protection, the Chloranthy Ring, and 3 Estus Flasks. So after picking up a Peculiar Doll, we decide that it's probably time to pay Oscar a visit. I mean, he's the one who sent us on this journey after all. So we decided to show him that the journey he sent us on, whatever it was, that he put this journey in very good hands. We wanted to let him know that before spitting on his grave. And then we promptly forgot there was a ball there. Can you tell I was tired at this point? And then after picking ourselves up the Rusted Iron Ring, please don't look at how much health we lost in the, like, 20 seconds it took to get there. But because of the health we lost in the past 20 seconds, we decided to put the 2 levels we have into Vitality. Took a little bit because I was considering having more damage, because my damage isn't the best, but I thought getting them all equal would be pretty good. And at this point, I was thinking, I've been playing games for 7 hours straight now, after being up the entire day. I think I'm just gonna go back to Firelink and then end it here. Just end playing the game for today. And I went, yeah, that sounds good. And so off we went to Firelink, and I decided, out of embarrassment for how that area went, I was gonna jump off the cliff. But it was about here where I forgot. I didn't sit at the Firelink bonfire, so yeah,